think of it this way. When you see something in the media, don't say, what's going on? Ask them, why are they doing this to me? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay? That is a good example, and that's a part of bread and circuses. Back during the Desert Dust operations, when they first started up, when Iraq went into Kuwait, Nancy can remember this because when I was at work, and I first heard it, and it got a little bit like this. Oh, Iraqi forces were kind of moving into Kuwait. Well, Kuwait's a country. It's not just kind of moving into the neighbor next door. Or it's not like you're going over to visit somebody for a cup of flour. But what was the key and most important event to take place the week following and while that was happening? Zsa Zsa Gabor slaps a cop. And it was on the front page of the Free Press, the news, and it was in the New York Times, and it was on the front page. The more frivolous the article that I see, and I will say this to be true, this is one of the gauges that I use, and it was something I was taught, the more frivolous the article on the front page, the more disastrous the event taking place at the time. Remember my hand and what I do with the other one. It's called bread and circuses. In Rome, the technique was used in the exact same manner. Want to go light up some Christians tonight? They're doing it down at the Colosseum. You see? Yes. Disappear, and that you would see the opiates rise. Not because it's easy to get the opiates in, but because the opiates are what are needed to down a population. Now let me ask you something, because you're all old enough. I see some gray hair here, and some people are in their middle 30s and into their 40s. In the 60s and into the 70s, marijuana was big, and a lot of other drugs that were, kind of mellowing things. You had a couch potato with an attitude, okay? You had a few high-speed drugs that were used, and cocaine was a baby back then. By the way, anybody remember when they said cocaine was not addictive? It's just like marijuana, it's not addictive. Well, we all know what happened then. And it may still not be, quote-unquote, physically addictive, but it's done a good job of sinking its hooks into everybody here, hasn't it? Well, strangely enough, if you look at this from a battle plan, in order for you to commit yourself to the Opium War, an Opium War technique that was used against the Chinese in the 1800s, they introduced a new family of drugs. And the coca derivatives started to flow into the nation from, again, the soft underbelly of the United States. Now, if somebody asked you where Bogota was in 1965, they'd say it was outside Cincinnati somewhere, and I've been there. It's pretty dull. Okay? Today, most everybody knows that that's Bogota, Colombia. One of the drug king centers, one of the central control points. Well, we also know that at that time, especially with the history books that we do have that are halfway decent, that the Central Intelligence Agency, Defense Intelligence Agency, and other organizations were planting themselves there to take control of certain resources. They created the threat. There is no doubt in my mind that they have brought, and that they are bringing the drugs in. I'd be more than willing to go along with that argument, but I'll go one step farther. The big boys are going to get rid of the cocaine dealers now, because we no longer want a hyped-up, excitable population. What they need now are couch potatoes again. They got what they wanted. They've destroyed a whole generation of minds because the technology is gone. The knowledge of how to has been taken from a 20-year block of people and thrown out the window. Did we replace the skilled laborers that we needed to replace in the 70s and 80s? No. Did we replace the technicians and the people who knew how to make things work? No. Have we taken the manufacturing out of the nation? Yes. Well, now that we've gotten this far and we've got this big downer going where everybody's not supposed to react in any positive way, we're supposed to implode. We're supposed to go in on ourselves and start to, mope and pull out the old sob rags and cry, and then, well, we got to find some way to feel better, so we're going to look for a drug. Cocaine's not going to be available, but the opiums will be. Opium dens. a great way to deal with the population. Not just opium dens, you can use a variety of techniques, but it'll come down to the opiates are the excellent tool for the population groups involved. It'll bring them down, it'll put them on the shelf. There'll still be enough crime so that this massive national police force can be used, and cocaine will be brushed aside when they decide to get rid of it, just like swatting a bug. But right now, they're in the transition phase. Now, I'll remind you of something. Back when the Iraq War took place, I asked people this. Yeah, we cut off the oil. Did we cut off the legal and illegal trade in opium coming out of the opium poppy fields of Iraq, Iran, Turkey, and Afghanistan? No. Who owns most of those fields? The House of Windsor, alias the Queen of England now, because she's queen, so she's the one who gets to be the top cookie. But it's the House of Windsor who was heavily invested in these opium poppy fields when they originally targeted the Republic of China in the 1800s. When they employed them against China, they went into the 3 southern provinces of China and created what are called the Opium Wars. What they did is they introduced a drug that did not exist in China, and when it was, it became the same problem that we see in the United States now. Now, I'll go a little farther back because there's something very interesting. If you ever get into history, and boy, I'm a history nut. During the Aztec and the Mayan eras, massive stone carvings were generated. One of the key ritualistic tools used were the coca drugs available at the time. Progressively, it became a high art form, and then at some point, they started to lapse, and they fell farther and farther within themselves. And eventually, they lost the technology, they lost the artisans. There's no great work that survived to demonstrate who they were and what happened. Can we speculate? Well, the stone carvings tell us a great deal about what they were involved with and what took place. Has history repeated itself? Most assuredly, yes. Can we get out of it? Well, there are 2 ways that this can happen and we can get out of it, this particular aspect. With this as a shining beacon, as a guideline, we can dig ourselves out of this trench. We can. But there are 3 legs to the tripod that we have to stand on. God, family, and country. Lose any one of them and the tripod falls. Pick one of the legs on any of these cameras and you'll find out real quick. Our enemy understood this. The family will be owned by the government. God, in their eyes, will cease to exist. And countries shall be dissolved. From the 3 fingers to the fist. You see how it works? We can get out of it, but we have to either do one of 2 things here now. Accelerate the circle of activity that takes place, the natural series of circular cycles, and kick ourselves through a couple of them and get back to liberty. Or we fight tooth and nail and don't worry about the ark, but go straight to liberty. Either one's going to be expensive. Either one's going to cost us a great deal. One would be preferred over the other. I really don't want to spend any time being a slave. And I certainly will not curse my children for that. So I got this funny feeling we're going to be sorely pressed to take the straight line and be done with it. Yes? That's okay. 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 Well, the question is that when will be the time? When will be the time that we fight? And if I were to say this, if I'd started this, I've seen this happen before. Everybody's asking the same question. Everybody asked that question 8 months ago. When is the time to fight? I was lulled into idiocy once. I will not